So we took a vote today, keep painting, to see who wanted to do this job. Oatmeal in the floor. And not anybody would take the job because they all somehow thought that I wouldn't approve of what they did. You think is that a possibility? Would anybody, like, would I disapprove? So I'm stuck doing sprinkles.
Mr. Sprinkles.
So as soon as we get done sprinkling or painting this floor, then I'll be done yelling at Chad, and then we're gonna go feature an FJ60 that is just super, super cool. It is all business, and it's getting ready to leave today to go to Montana, and then all the way back down into Mexico to go javelina hunting, and so it's gonna be a good episode. Stay tuned. All right, so first I want to thank the Fab guys for letting me use the shop to film today because, as you saw, we were painting the office floors, so the showroom's full of office furniture. This is the only place we could fit where it's clean enough and hopefully quiet enough to do this. So we're going to feature this 60 series restoration that's actually really unique. First of all, this rig was here 16, 17 years ago. We did a stage 2 restoration and the Cummins swap back then, 4BT H55F. We were doing them all the time. Not so much anymore, but then he sent it back here to be restored because he has used this thing super hard for almost 2 decades. Really harsh conditions, lots of winter driving, hunting all over the United States. He's a firefighter, and so he uses it for to get to remote parts of the backcountry, and so it was pretty beat up. So now we did a whole bunch of very purpose-built things to this vehicle to make it ready for its next tour of duty, and it really is actually a tour of duty in this case. So I'm going to take you through it and show you everything we did to make this just a very durable, usable Land Cruiser. We hardly ever get a chance to film with a rig on a rack like this, so this is actually pretty cool. A couple of things I want to mention about this particular build. And all of these 80 series chassis builds in large. So first of all, one of the things I really like are the body mounts that our guys came up with for the 60 series, 80 series projects. These are very OEM looking, but they were designed and of course they're fabricated in-house, but you wouldn't know it, right? When you get under here, nothing homemade looking. Here you can see where the sliders bolt up with those exact same plates that you saw Alex welding on earlier in the episode. But I want to talk about the finish on this frame. So you can see this is a pretty bumpy, kind of ugly, inconsistent, weird looking frame. That is because this vehicle, which is built to be used, is going to get a lot of winter use, and in salty climates or in climates where they put mag chloride and salt on the roads. And so we had the frame hot dip galvanized and then powder coated. When you do that galvanizing coating on a frame, it just does weird stuff. It's an uneven mix of textures, and it's bumpy and it's kind of ugly, and then the powder coating doesn't really hide any of that, but it's purely function, and this frame is going to last and last and last, even in any kind of conditions, right? So all function on the chassis of this. Another thing on these kinds of builds is, of course, all new brake lines, all new fuel lines, everything fabricated. All the original bolts that we did use have been re-zinced. Axles and suspension components either painted or powder coated. The underside of the body was meticulously scraped, free of all of the original sound deadening and anything that was under there, and then prepped and sprayed with Line-X, after being seam sealed, of course, to prevent rust. So much work on these body off restorations, but it's worth it when you're standing under here and it all looks so pretty. One more thing about a 60-80 build like this is that it gives us room to put a humongous fuel cell in the back. We fabricate these in-house. They are about 46 or 47 gallons. Lots of fuel capacity. In this case with the 4BT, I don't even know what that's going to get. At least 450, maybe 500 miles of capacity on one tank of fuel. Really, really cool. I'm not sure what we're going to do for the tank on the one that you saw DJ working on though, because that rig factory bumpers, the spare tire is still going to have to go underneath. Maybe we'll put it up on the side of the drive shaft Not sure yet. Check back in a different episode. Another thing that this vehicle is going to do is tow. Because our rear bumper does have a tow hitch built in, but isn't really rated for anything, we decided to go ahead and install a receiver hitch. This commercial receiver hitch is for an 80 series and it just bolted up to the 80 series frame. And that way, then we put a pintle hitch where a tow hitch would normally go in our bumper, so he doesn't have redundant receivers. First of all, as is the theme of this episode, this vehicle was built on an 80 series chassis. It's kind of the way we are doing things now when we want that modern ride with the classic styling and looks. In this case, for the ride, but it's also for the suspension durability, the suspension tweakability, the stance, the ride height we needed to accommodate the 4BT, and the fact that this vehicle is just going to be way more stable on and off-road with the increased width and also this, suspension improvements of the 80 series. So that's the biggest improvement. Body off restoration, of course, on the 80 series chassis, with keeping the vehicle very, very durable in mind. First thing we did to the frame is we hot dip galvanized it. You saw that on when it was up on the rack. That's the foundation for this vehicle lasting through the years and being used, on mag chloride roads and salty roads. Hopefully this frame stays solid forever. It certainly has received the right treatment. Next, the drivetrain. I told you we did a 4BT swap almost 20 years ago. That engine is so durable and usable that we just kept it. It's actually the perfect engine for this vehicle. The owner's used to it and he likes it. It's got a low maintenance engine, not much to go wrong, and these things just seem to last and last. And on top of that, it provides a respectable amount of power. I mean, this vehicle can cruise up those mountain passes that you guys know that I do on the way home in 5th gear at 70 miles an hour. That's almost top speed, about 75, but it doesn't have any problems getting there and it's easy to maintain. So we kept the 4BT, but we did refinish it and we resealed it, and there's some modifications. And then we refinished it in red because it just seemed correct to give it a very industrial look. So we didn't do anything to increase the performance of this engine, but we did do some really cool stuff to it. One of the things we added was a pre-lube system. So you'll hear when we start this engine that there's an electric oil pump that primes the system and builds oil pressure before the engine starts. That adds to the engine life on these things. We also added an improved block heater. We refit everything, even though the engine was existing. Of course, we had to remount it in the new 80 series chassis, so we took advantage of that time to remount everything, new brackets for all of the other existing engine things, like the snorkel, like the air cleaner for the snorkel. We added the ARB compressor, dual batteries, and just a few other things to make this vehicle a little bit more usable than it was the last time we built it. So about the vehicle's exterior refinish. So first of all, body off restoration, so you know how those go. The vehicle's completely disassembled. All of the surfaces are sprayed individually, including the underside of the body, which we prep vigorously first and spray with Line-X. And then in this case, we decided to go with something we don't do very often, and that is some Line-X armor on the exterior of the body. We started up high on the hood to protect it from rock chips and continued that line around through the whole top of the front fender and following that body line all the way to the back. That is going to help this paint job last a lot longer, and especially when you're using it all winter long and on lots of dirt roads and fire roads. It's a very durable coating, lasts and lasts. Of course, the rest of the surfaces, this is a single stage paint that we use on all of our restorations that use solid colors, and it's extremely durable. What else did we do to this? Accessories. These rock sliders are really cool. They are ours that we built in-house, and you saw how Alex mounted them so they can be removed. That's really important. And we also did a lot of work to the front bumper of this Land Cruiser, which was the bumper we put on it 15, 16 years ago. It took some doing, but we were able to restore this old style ARB bull bar back to a respectable look so we could retain it. We also added rigid truck lights to the front of this because heck, you just can't see if you don't have good LED lights anymore. So some other accessories include these 3XM gull wing windows, which are so nice to get in and out of the back. And then when you're in the back later, you'll see that there's cargo panels on the sides and tailgate storage for all this guy's gear that he's gonna load this thing up with. We also added Aussie mirrors, of course, and we retained the safari snorkel that was on there from the beginning. Let's check out the inside. All right, so let's get in the back of this thing. First of all, our standard dual swing out bumper. Of course, the base is different because of the 80 series chassis, and it's really beefed up to mount solid to the frame right there. On the spare tire side of the carrier, we've got our rigid camp light, of course, and the addition of an iBoost cell phone booster, which I've heard are really good. In the back of this bad boy, tailgate storage and cargo storage on the sides, and you'll see that we added this cargo bar tie down material all over inside the back here. That was actually added by the customer years ago. We just powder coated it and reinstalled it. Utilitarian in the back, but still matching and really nice. I love that Schillman gives you the ability to match the rest of the upholstery with their seats. So Schillman bucket seats, and of course door panels and rear seat to match. New carpet throughout, and some PRLC detail on the front dash that I'll talk about. Okay, so this looks all stock and it's really close, but there's a few things that we do that I just love on the interior I want to point out. So we've added some switches. First of all, this dome light switch, which controls the upgraded dome light switches, which we'll get a shot of for you, and then a switch for the ARB air compressor. These switches are Carling style switches, and they're mounted in a 3D printed bezel that we make that makes them just an easy snug fit in a 60 series dash, and you can see those on our online store. We've also added Carling style switches to the Tuffy box, in this case for both seat heaters and that camp light that I showed you in the rear. And this is our Tuffy box modification that adds wireless charging on the top. I'm glad I sat in here because one thing that we did that's really cool to this rig, I almost forgot entirely about. So if you've ever driven a diesel in the winter, you know sometimes they have a hard time getting operating temperature. So we engineered and added some radiator shutters that close by pulling that cable, and then that way you cut off some of the airflow to the radiator and let the engine run a little bit warmer. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about these blue batteries that look pretty cool in this engine compartment. Battery technology has changed a lot, and there's a lot of batteries out there that used to be considered good that aren't good anymore. Sorry Optima, but we can't use your stuff anymore. It doesn't hold a charge, they're terrible. They used to be good, now they're not. But a gel battery or a battery that doesn't spill acid all over is still really nice. And so we have switched to these X2 batteries from Batteries Plus. I'm telling you what, this is the battery for any four-wheel drive app or off-road vehicle. A 4-year unlimited, no questions asked. These batteries stand the test. I've got one at my house that's in an excavator that's just basically frozen the entire year, and it'll start that thing up at any time. This is the best battery we've used, and they're available in all the configurations that we like. Dual top post like these, and side post, top post that we really like. And so this is the only battery that we're gonna use in anything from now on. They're kind of pricey, but worth it. And while we're talking about two batteries, I have a stop it. So, I hate dual batteries. I hate dual batteries. The joke around the shop is, do you know how a vehicle has a dead battery? Because it has two of them. That's because dual battery systems, no matter what you guys tell me, no matter how many people try to argue, they all draw voltage from the batteries that you're trying to preserve by having two batteries. And that doesn't make any sense to me, it never has. Anything that sits out here that has two batteries, they're always both dead. I own a vehicle that has two batteries, they're always both dead. It's so frustrating. These batteries, however, are not what I'm talking about. These are just hooked together. So essentially this is just one big battery. I'm talking about the dual battery systems where there's some device that's supposed to link them together when one's dead and cut one off at some time and whatever. And you know, I know somebody's gonna say, well, what about the National or what about the Red Arc? But somebody's gonna say something, but I'm telling you, I don't think we've tried them all, but we've tried dozens, and I've never seen one that I like, and I've never seen one. So stop with the dual batteries, unless they're just hooked together, or maybe one's just not hooked up to anything and you carry some jumper cables that you can, that's probably the most reliable dual battery system. Just a spare battery. And if you're gonna do that, why not just one of those, you know, NOCO Genius jump boxes in the Tuffy box, right? That's like an emergency battery when you need one, but Dual batteries, they're almost as bad as stainless steel bolts. So stop it. Stop it! So we're here with Chris in his Land Cruiser that he's very familiar with and has been driving for how long?
Since 2009.
So, and this is the first time driving it since the restoration. So let's go for a spin.
All right.
Didn't take as long.
Lube system there.
Yeah, didn't take as long that time, did it?
That was nice, yeah.
So a lot of miles in this Chris has on adventures in and around the Western United States and probably else. I'll let him tell you just a little bit about how he normally uses this truck.
So normally it gets used a lot. I've towed trailers with it. I towed my boat that I had in Alaska. I towed it back to Montana from Seattle. I went over and picked it up, and it was like, that was heavy. It was like 7,000 pounds behind this thing, Jeremiah. It was a good thing I had trailer brakes. Just
wow.
say that. So yeah, that was tow with it. I do a lot of camping with it. Load it down. One reason I went to the 80 series frame and suspension on this is because when I took it and weighed it there at Pinedale one time when it was all loaded up and ready to go to New Mexico, it weighed 7,000 pounds. Coincidentally, about the same as what the boat weighed, but the entire vehicle, gross weight with all of us in it, the dog, the guns, all the camping equipment, 7,000 pounds, which was about, I think it was about 1,000 pounds over what the data plaque on that door frame said was maximum vehicle gross weight. And it handled like it too. So that was made for some white knuckle trips to New Mexico or whenever we went out to go camping or hunting in eastern Montana. Had all the gear in it.
And it was sprung over too.
Yeah, it was sprung over. So yeah, it was, I used to joke and say it was my wife's favorite car, but if I wasn't there, she probably would have sold it pretty cheap for the right guy. Like, what'd you do with my favorite car? So there, yeah, that's a lot of it. It's just out driving the back roads, and then late season hunting. I've had the thing chained up on all four, pushing some pretty good snow, and I think that's kind of where the torque in that little Cummins diesel engine comes in pretty nice. You know, you can push up through that stuff. So that's been nice having that. Get it out on the highway. It's another reason we went to the 80 series frame. Was it just did not handle as well on the freeway at speed. It was not that fun to drive. You know, so once you got, you know, on the back roads, on the dirt roads, it was okay, but on the freeway, doing 70 in a crosswind with it all loaded down like that was not fun.
And now it's time to head back with it. So from here you're going to Montana and then immediately loading it all up with gear
back this way.
Right back by.
Because we're going to New Mexico to hunt quail with my buddy down in the boot heel.
All right. Well, send pictures. We'll be excited to see how it does and see it out in its natural habitat.
That sounds like a plan.
All right, so this thing's on its way back from getting picked up and then going on a cross-country hunting trip. And this is just so cool. Check it out. So people who think some of our clients don't use their trucks, you know, don't you, buddy? How about this for packing? Thanks for watching this episode of Prophet's Resurrection Land Cruisers TV. If you've got any questions or requests for things that we could talk about here on this show, just let us know. Thanks for watching. Another big upgrade to this build and a lot of our 60 series builds is the addition of 100 series Land Cruiser seats. So his phone like ringing constantly all the time, right? And he's like, it bothers everybody how often his phone rings and he's always on the phone. And that's why I got that ringtone.
My ringtone is funny.
What's your ringtone?
Call me.
That's not just from me. Alex had the Darth Vader, when I called him, it was Darth Vader soundtrack.